She didn't ruin you. You handed her the tools. Machiavelli warned, most downfalls aren't accidents. They're failures of discernment dressed as love. You weren't betrayed. You were conquered by your own refusal to see clearly. The wrong woman doesn't have to destroy you. You'll do that yourself, quietly, completely, and still call it loyalty. Machiavelli didn't teach love. He taught survival. History doesn't mourn the man who chooses poorly. No one builds him a statue. No one writes his name in stone. He fades quietly, buried beneath the ruins of his own potential. And when people speak of him, they don't say, "He was strong, but she ruined him." They say, "He should have known better." That's the brutal truth Machiavelli understood. Men are not broken by fate. They are broken by the illusions they choose. Modern love tells you to believe in soulmates, to forgive red flags, to chase chemistry, to lead with emotion. Machiavelli taught none of that. He taught strategy. He taught survival. He taught that a man must see the world not as it should be, but as it is. And what he saw was this: there are only two types of women: strategic allies or emotional liabilities. No gray zone. No, but she's working on herself. No, she's just misunderstood. She either fortifies your life or she fractures it. She sharpens your edge or she dulls it. She multiplies your mission or she siphons your strength. But most men don't choose with clarity. They choose with appetite, with loneliness, with fantasy. You see softness and call it safety. You see beauty and call it destiny. But you never ask, can this woman walk beside my purpose without trying to steer it? And by the time you realize the answer is no, it's too late. She's in your house, in your finances, in your mind. And every time she disrespects your boundaries, you make an excuse. You call it love. You call it growth. You call it compromise. But Machiavelli would have called it what it is: a failure of discernment. She didn't need to burn your life down. You gave her the match. You handed her the fuel. And then you stood there, watching your throne burn, calling it devotion. That's the key line. She smiled while you collapsed, and you called it intimacy. Because most men don't see the collapse until it's over. Not when she mocks your ambition. Not when she tests your frame. Not when she uses silence as power and drama as leverage. Only when they're already empty. When the respect is gone. When their discipline is dust. When the life they were building has been quietly sabotaged by the very woman they swore was their peace. Machiavelli never taught men to hate women. He taught them to see clearly, to observe behavior, to choose with strategy, not emotion, and above all, to never mistake beauty for loyalty, charm for value, or affection for alignment. Because the world won't cry for the man who ignored the signs, and neither will she. The woman is either fuel or fire. There is no neutral. There is no neutral woman. That's the first truth you must burn into your frame. She's either fuel for your mission or fire set to your foundation. She either fortifies what you're building or she buries it beneath emotional chaos. There's no in-between. No, maybe she's just having a phase. No, she's not toxic. She's just intense. Because if she's not strengthening you, she's softening you. And a softened man doesn't lead. He doesn't create. He doesn't conquer. He manages. He manages moods. He manages drama. He manages chaos that shouldn't even be in his life to begin with. And the worst part? He calls it love. But it isn't love. It's strategy. Her and most women today have mastered the art of appearing beneficial while living parasitically. They praise your ambition, but only as long as it doesn't outshine their insecurity. They support your goals, but only until it costs them attention. They smile. They encourage. But deep down, they are extracting your focus, your time, your power, and because you've been trained to interpret emotional attention as loyalty, you don't see it. You think you found peace, but what you've actually found is camouflaged sabotage. She's not fighting you. She's distracting you. She doesn't stop you from building. She just interrupts it every time it threatens to surpass her comfort zone. It starts small. Why are you always working? Can't you just relax? You're so serious all the time. Translation: your discipline makes her feel irrelevant, so she needs to dim it, gently. And if you're not vigilant, you'll confuse her emotional needs with your own masculine compass. You'll stop doing what must be done to do what keeps her emotionally fed. That's the moment it all begins to rot. Not loudly, not dramatically, but silently. She doesn't need to set fire to your mission. She just needs to make you second guess it. That's why the most dangerous woman isn't the one who screams, it's the one who gently pulls you off course while telling you she's proud of you, and you, if you haven't trained your discernment, you'll believe her. That's the key line. You weren't in love. You were being managed. And because it didn't look like betrayal, you won't even know you were conquered until you're standing over the ruins of a life you barely remember building. The modern woman doesn't need to destroy you. She just needs to redirect you, a few degrees at a time, until one day you look up and realize you're nowhere near your purpose, and you let it happen, not because you were weak, but because you thought love meant losing your edge. You chose her because you had no standard. She didn't trick you. You chose her, not with logic, not with principle, but with appetite, lust, loneliness, low self-respect. That's what made the decision. And you called it love. You called it chemistry. You called it fate. But Machiavelli would have called it what it really was, an undisciplined man handing over power to beauty. And the moment you handed it over, she didn't have to deceive you. You volunteered. You ignored the signs, the subtle disrespect, the performative affection, the manipulation wrapped in softness, and you told yourself, she's just complicated. She'll change. She's worth the risk. But here's the truth. Red flags ignored become regrets engraved. You didn't walk into a trap. You built it yourself, with excuses, with fantasies, with hope, and then you waited for her to prove you right, to validate your weakness, to turn your emotional gamble into a winning story. But she didn't. She did exactly what she was always going to do. She followed her pattern. She revealed her nature, and she left you gutted, confused, and looking for someone to blame. But blame won't rebuild you. Only clarity will. She wasn't the lie. You were. You lied to yourself every time your gut spoke, and you silenced it. You lied when she disrespected your time, and you smiled through it. You lied when she mocked your purpose, and you labeled it playfulness. And worst of all, you lied when you looked in the mirror and called yourself a man with standards while orbiting a woman who violated every one of them. Your downfall wasn't her deceit. It was your refusal to discriminate, not in a hateful way, in a strategic one. You didn't demand depth. You didn't measure values. You didn't inspect her history, her patterns, her behavior when no one's watching. You chose based on beauty, because that's all you thought you were worth. And that's the key line. Machiavelli warned, the deceived man is not innocent. He volunteered. He handed over his discernment. He closed his eyes. He drank the wine and called it water. And when it poisoned him, he cried victim, instead of realizing he poured the glass. Most men today don't get destroyed by women. They get destroyed by the part of them that refuses to raise their standard. And unless that part of you dies, you'll keep choosing the same woman with a different face and keep calling it bad luck instead of what it really is, lack of discipline. The woman who tests you doesn't hate you. She's measuring you. She doesn't hate you. She's not trying to ruin you. She's testing you because she has to. It's not emotional cruelty. It's biological certainty. Every woman tests frame, not because she wants to see you fall, but because she needs to know if you'll stand. Women don't trust words. They don't trust titles. They don't even trust your past. They trust your posture under pressure. They trust the man who doesn't flinch when she throws silence, drama, or distance his way. The man who doesn't beg for peace when she withdraws affection. The man who doesn't bend his values just to stay chosen. That's the real test. It's not about her being difficult. It's about her being instinctual. You think she's attacking your leadership. She's not. She's measuring it. She's feeling around in the dark to see if there's anything real inside of you. And when she pushes, when she questions you, mocks your discipline, plays emotional games, and you fold, you confirm what she suspected. You're not leading, you're performing, and once she sees the man you're pretending to be is just an act, she loses faith. Not because you failed, but because now she knows she's alone. That's the turning point. When the test ends, not in your victory, but in her disappointment. Because if you fold, if you beg, if you adjust to avoid tension, you're not her man anymore. You're her puppet, her project, her placeholder, and she'll keep you around, but only long enough to lose all respect for you, until one day, She looks at you with the same eyes she once looked at you with admiration, and all you see is quiet contempt, because you trained her. You trained her to believe your strength was negotiable, that your spine could be softened by emotion, that your discipline could be debated. But Machiavelli knew better. He said it's safer to be feared than loved, because fear maintains boundaries that affection alone cannot. Not fear of abuse, not fear of punishment, fear of consequence, fear of your absence. That's the respect she's looking for. Not a man who dominates, but a man who cannot be moved. That's the key line. She doesn't test your strength to break it. She tests to see if it exists, and if you have it, she'll submit to it, voluntarily, not out of weakness, but out of trust. But if she finds nothing in you but pliability and performance, she may still say she loves you, but deep down, she'll already be looking for a man she can actually follow. Stop worshiping her. Watch who she becomes in your absence. Any woman can act right when she's being watched. She can be sweet when she's getting attention. She can be loyal when your eyes are on her. She can be kind when she's being fed validation. But the real test, what does she become when you're gone? Not forever, just momentarily. When you pull your attention back, when you stop texting first, when the spotlight fades and the rewards stop flowing, what shows up? That's who she really is. And if you're afraid to find out, you've already surrendered. Because most men today don't want to know the truth. They want to preserve the illusion. They want to believe that affection equals alignment, that performance equals principle. But Machiavelli would have told you the truth. Loyalty that requires supervision is not loyalty, it's compliance. And you can't build a legacy beside a woman who only behaves when fed. That's the key line. If she only behaves when fed, she was never yours. She was bought, and what's bought can always be outbid. You say you want to test her character, then step back. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to observe. Disengage emotionally, detach your attention, let stillness speak. If she multiplies your order in your absence, if she honors your frame without being told, if she protects your name when you're not around, you may have something rare. You may have a woman whose alignment is internal, but if she drifts the moment the energy drops, if she starts arguments to feel alive, if she seeks validation elsewhere just to replace your silence, she was never yours to begin with. She was yours as long as the stimulus was there, not the standard, not the discipline, just the high. And you became the drug. This is what men never check, because they're too afraid of what they'll find. But if you don't test her silence, you will never know her truth. And if she can't thrive in your absence, she will never honor you in your presence. Because fear of loss, not declarations of love, is what keeps people grounded. You don't get loyalty by worshiping her. You get loyalty by removing the pedestal and watching how she responds when you no longer orbit her. Let her stand on her own. Let her prove that her values hold without your constant emotional supervision. Because the man who needs to be constantly present to secure loyalty is not leading, he's babysitting. And Machiavelli didn't write for babysitters, he wrote for rulers. A weak man calls self-betrayal love. You weren't broken by her. You were broken by the version of yourself you became for her. Let's call it what it is. Most modern men are trained to mistake self-erasure for emotional intelligence, to call surrender compassion, to call silence peace, to call self-betrayal love. You've been told to keep her happy at all costs, to apologize first, to bend, adjust, accommodate, to prove you're not like other men. And what did that give you? Did it give you loyalty, respect, peace? Number. It gave you performance, control, and eventually quiet contempt. Because the woman who manages you doesn't love you. She just knows she can. You lost yourself, not in her body, but in her reactions. You handed her your truth, your standards, your mission, and called it intimacy. But Machiavelli knew better. He warned, the prince who does not command respect becomes a tool of his own advisors. And in your case, your woman became your advisor, then your ruler, then your mirror. And now, you're a shadow of the man you were supposed to become. Why? Because you apologized for your values. That was the moment it began. The moment you started walking on eggshells, softening your words, censoring your ambition because it made her feel insecure. She didn't conquer you. You kneeled first. You wanted peace. She wanted power, and you gave her both. But here's the truth most men can't swallow. You can't lead a woman who doesn't respect you, and she won't respect a man who constantly sacrifices his edge to preserve comfort. That's why your softness didn't deepen the relationship. It killed it, slowly, subtly, one compromise at a time. But it's not too late. If you're still breathing, if you still have the will to reclaim yourself, you can restore your frame, but it's going to take war. And that war begins in 3 forms. 1. Distance. You need space from the source of chaos, emotionally, mentally, physically, if needed. If she is constantly draining you, you don't fix it with more presence. You fix it by stepping back, not to punish her, but to realign you. 2. Discipline. You can't rebuild frame with feelings. You rebuild it with action. Get back in your body, back in your mission, back in your code, the gym, the journal, the silence. Do hard things. Win private battles. Shed the version of you she could control. 3. Discernment. Now you study, not her. You. How did you get here? What did you trade? What did you ignore? Where did you lie to yourself? Until you answer these, you'll repeat the pattern. New woman. Same wound. Same collapse. Because the weak man always finds the woman who reminds him that he still hasn't become himself. And the woman who senses emotional weakness won't follow. She'll manage. She'll pull the strings. Gently, subtly, strategically, until you forget you ever had a mission of your own. But you do, and it's not too late to return to it. You reclaim your power not by demanding respect, but by embodying it. Not by debating her tone, but by becoming so stable that no emotional weather can move you. She doesn't need to be defeated. She needs to feel that the man standing in front of her can't be controlled. Because love without respect is just performance. And you're not here to perform, you're here to lead. And if she can't follow, then you walk, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Because she didn't need to conquer you. You kneeled first. And now, you rise, not to win her back, but to return to yourself. You don't win her through devotion, you win through direction. Machiavelli didn't teach men to beg for loyalty. He didn't write for romantics or wishful thinkers. He wrote for rulers, and he made one thing clear. When love fades, it's fear that maintains order. Not fear of punishment, fear of consequence, fear of absence. Today's men are trained to lead with love, to prove they're safe, kind, soft, agreeable, to earn her commitment through emotional devotion. But devotion without direction is submission, and the woman who feels you orbiting her rather than leading yourself will lose all respect for you because she doesn't follow your feelings. She follows your frame, and frame is not performance. It's not how loud you speak. It's not how many rules you recite. It's not how hard you pound your chest or how stoic you pretend to be. Frame is posture, a deep, quiet knowing of who you are, a rooted presence that cannot be moved by tears, silence, or seduction. The man who holds his direction regardless of her storms, that's the man she follows. Because here's the truth, women don't submit to devotion, they submit to gravity. And gravity is created by discipline, by certainty, by the quiet power of a man who does not need her to validate his value. You don't win her by trying harder, by explaining more, by reassuring her daily that you are the one. You win by being the man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't justify, who doesn't argue for his worth. The man who can walk away, not as a tactic, but because his purpose is bigger than her mood. That's the key line. The man who can walk away owns her attention, because she knows he doesn't need it. He's not cruel, he's not abusive, he's unavailable to manipulation. And that's what makes him magnetic. Most men chase her validation and call it connection. They confuse her temporary affection with lasting alignment. And when the behavior shifts, they panic, because they've built no center of their own. But a man who leads with direction doesn't panic. He doesn't chase. He steps back, watches, and decides. Because he knows what he's building, and he won't invite someone into his kingdom just because she says the right things during the tour. That kind of man doesn't win love through effort. He wins it through directional presence. And the woman who's ready, she'll feel it. Not in her mind, but in her bones. And she'll align, not because you demanded it, but because your gravity left her no other choice. She didn't ruin you. She revealed you. She didn't ruin you. She revealed you. The part of you that was never grounded. The part of you that needed approval more than direction. The part of you that couldn't walk away because there was nothing to walk back to. And that's the truth Machiavelli tried to hand you. The woman didn't steal your future. You handed it to her. Every downfall, every heartbreak, every collapse. It wasn't fate. It was pattern, a consequence of low standards dressed up as love. You ignored the signs. You softened your voice. You made excuses. You told yourself she would grow. She would change. She would see your worth. But she didn't. Not because she was evil, but because you never gave her a reason to rise. You bent to avoid tension. You compromised to avoid loneliness. You silenced yourself to keep the peace, and she read it all as weakness, because women don't trust men who orbit them. They trust men who orbit nothing but their mission. And you weren't orbiting your mission. You were orbiting her moods, her affection, her approval. You taught her she could have you without effort, without alignment, without reverence, and she responded exactly how nature wired her to. She lost respect. Not loudly, quietly, until one day you realized you were no longer leading. You were following her emotional weather while calling it partnership. But here's the shift. This was never about her. It was always about you. About the version of you that settled, that tolerated disrespect, that called red flags healing journeys, that confused surrender for strength and called desperation devotion. That version of you, it has to die. Not because she left, but because it never deserved to survive. And no, this isn't about revenge. It's about rebirth. You don't become the man you were meant to be by hating her. You become him by facing the brutal truth that you were never betrayed. You just refused to raise your standard. She was the consequence. Your collapse was the cost. But the future is up to you. Because the next time she tests you, the next time a beautiful face comes with hidden chaos, the next time you feel the pull of emotional comfort begging you to forget who you are, you won't flinch, you won't fold, you won't chase. Because now you know, you don't choose a woman based on how she makes you feel. You choose based on whether she can hold the frame of the man you refuse to stop becoming. That's the final truth. She didn't destroy your kingdom. You did, by leaving the gates unguarded. But now, you know. And once a man sees clearly, he doesn't go back to blindness. He rebuilds. Stronger, sharper, unapologetically focused. So the next time you feel pulled by lust, or guilt, or comfort dressed as love, remember, you were never weak. You were just undisciplined. And now, you see? And once you see, you never go back.